Okay, so picture this. The man who made Elvis Presley a global superstar, Colonel Tom Parker. He built this incredible career. But then, after Elvis dies, Parker he almost torches the whole thing. It's quite a story. And that's what this deep dive is all about. It's the story of how the Colonel got sued by the very empire he helped create. And, maybe surprisingly, how that lawsuit actually ended up saving Elvis Presley Enterprises. So we're going to dig into the documents, the books, the research. We want to uncover some maybe surprising facts, those real aha moments for you. Our mission really is to unpack just how tight Parker's financial grip was, the frankly bold moves the estate had to make, and how this legal battle just completely reshaped Elvis's legacy. It's fascinating stuff. So Elvis dies in '77,
Yeah.
and Colonel Parker, his manager forever,
Yeah.
he doesn't exactly ride off into the sunset, does he? Oh, not at all. He just keeps going, handling business, making licensing deals, and still taking his cut. Still taking his cut.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a small cut, 50%, right, of everything.
A full 50%. And what's really kind of shocking is that his deal, whatever it was, it stayed active even after Elvis was gone. It was just bleeding the estate dry.
How did they even get there? I mean, such a one-sided deal. You'd
Yeah.
think. Well, you have to go back a bit, don't you?
You really do. You have to look back maybe to 1973. Elvis had just gone through the divorce with Priscilla, needed cash,
Right.
and Parker helps broker this deal with RCA, selling the rights to all his pre-1973 recordings.
The masters. All those huge hits.
All of them, for about $5.4 million. Which even then, I mean, it's widely seen as just a terrible, terrible business decision.
Terrible. RCA gets the rights forever. Elvis gets a one-off payment.
And Parker gets half of that.
50%. So Elvis walks away with what, less than $3 million before taxes?
Pretty much. And some sources, well, they suggest Parker might have even gotten extra payments from RCA on the side. Off the books.
You're kidding. Leveraging his relationship with them.
That's what some of the research points to. It's hard to nail down definitively, but the suggestion is there.
Wow. Okay, so that 73 deal wasn't just bad then. It had huge ripple effects after Elvis died.
Oh, absolute crippling. The estate wasn't earning royalties from his biggest songs anymore, but Parker. He's still pulling in 50% from, new record sales, merchandise, Graceland tours eventually. Everything.
And then Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, he passes away in '79.
June 26, 1979, and really, there was no one left in the family who could challenge Parker, or maybe even understood how to.
So the Colonel's deal outlives both Elvis and Vernon.
Exactly. It wasn't really until later that the estate or those trying to help it grasped the full picture. Parker was making millions just watching the money come in while the estate was struggling.
Okay, so Vernon's gone. The estate's basically drifting. Who takes the reins? And what's the first big step? Did they call in some music biz expert?
That's the interesting part. No, it was Priscilla Presley. She stepped up.
Okay.
Not just as Elvis's ex-wife, but really, trying to protect Lisa Marie's inheritance. Her legacy makes sense. And she saw pretty quickly things weren't right financially. Her first big move, hiring a CEO, Jack Soden.
Jack Soden, music guy.
Not at all. Kansas City investment banker, zero entertainment background.
Really?
Yeah. But Priscilla felt he wouldn't be starstruck. He'd see it as a business that needed fixing, a struggling business.
Okay, a numbers guy.
Exactly. And along with Soden, they brought in a probate lawyer, Blanchard Toole, to really dig into the finances.
Right, Toole. Okay, so this new team starts digging. What's the first, bombshell they uncover about Parker's dealings?
Okay, get ready for this. Toole starts looking, and the biggest shock. There was no formal contract.
What? Seriously, after all those years?
Nothing formally signed outlining the post-death arrangement or even some of the earlier stuff, apparently. Parker had just been operating on this implied agreement, taking these huge cuts for years.
Just implied, 50% implied.
Seems that way.
Right.
And get this, he was actually making more money after Elvis died.
More? How is that even possible?
Well, think about it. Licensing, merchandise, it kept growing. Even without new recordings from Elvis himself, Parker was just riding that wave.
It's just wild. So the court eventually found his dealings were almost fraudulent, right? And still no contract. It sounds totally predatory.
It does, from the estate's perspective, absolutely.
Yet Parker himself was always so defiant. He had that famous line, "Everything we did together." How do you square that? Was there any logic to him staying involved besides just Money?
That's the real nut in this whole thing, isn't it?
Right.
It's complex. I mean, the research definitely shows unethical stuff, financial exploitation, no doubt.
Right? They will
But
say.
Parker was still working, making deals, keeping Elvis's name out there, generating some income, even if the split was outrageous.
So, like, maybe keeping the lights on in a weird way.
You could maybe argue that.
Yeah.
But for the estate, it was death by 1,000 cuts. Toole's advice was pretty clear. Get Parker out. Ban him. Make him repay some of it.
Did they try to settle first?
Yeah.
Avoid a big public fight?
They did. They tried to renegotiate, maybe give him a different role, a smaller percentage. But Parker wouldn't budge.
To burn.
Absolutely. He genuinely seemed to believe he deserved half of everything. Forever. He said, half of Elvis was me.
Wow. So that left them no choice, really. Sue him.
Pretty much. That lawsuit was filed in 1981.
But it never actually went to trial, did it?
No, they settled out of court. But it was still a massive public defeat for Parker.
What were the terms? He was just out.
Completely removed from Elvis Presley Enterprises, barred from using Elvis's image or name for profit ever again.
And the money.
He got a one-time payment of $2 million, which sounds like a lot, but compared to what he had been making...
Enucks.
Yeah.
A fraction. For someone who controlled everything, that must have been devastating.
Yeah, and there was more. He had to turn over his entire personal collection of Elvis stuff.
His archives, you mean like clothes, contracts?
Everything. Stage outfits, original documents, personal items, photos, boxes and boxes of his private archives. It all went to Graceland.
So it wasn't just losing the business, it was losing the history he controlled too.
Exactly. A symbolic dethroning, you could say.
Okay, so even before this lawsuit is fully settled, Jack Soden, the new CEO, he's got a plan brewing, right?
He does. He saw Graceland, the house itself, as the key.
Right. It was costing a fortune just to maintain.
Exactly. So Houghton believed the only way to save the whole enterprise was to open Graceland to the public, turn it into an attraction.
And with Parker finally out of the way.
So Houghton and Priscilla could actually make that move.
Hmm.
It wasn't just about tourism, though. As Sean O'Neill writes in Elvis Inc., opening Graceland was about survival.
The lifeline.
It was the lifeline, and they did it fast. June 7th, 1982, less than a year after the lawsuit really got going, Graceland opened.
And it was a hit, right?
Huge hit, right from the start. And guess who wasn't invited to the opening day?
Let me guess. Colonel Tom Parker.
Bingo. The message couldn't have been clearer. This wasn't his kingdom anymore.
And Parker. Did he ever, express remorse? Apologize?
Never. Stayed defiant. Alana Nash quotes him saying, "I never robbed Elvis. Everything we did together." But the world kind of moved on.
Public opinion really turned against him.
Yeah. He went from being seen as this marketing genius to, well, a greedy manipulator who almost sank the legacy. He ended up spending his last years mostly in Las Vegas, gambling, died pretty much alone in 1997.
It's quite the fall. So looking back, this 1981 lawsuit,
Yeah.
it feels like the turning point.
Absolutely pivotal. You could argue pretty convincingly that without that lawsuit, there's no Graceland as we know it, no Elvis Week, maybe no Elvis brand, really.
It saved everything.
It seems like it did. But here's where it gets complicated again.
Okay.
Yes, Parker's actions were unethical. Yes, he took way too much. Crippled the estate financially, no question. However, think about this. What if he had just walked away right after Elvis died? There's a real chance the whole thing might have just collapsed immediately, completely fallen apart before anyone like Soden or Priscilla could even step in.
So his continued involvement, even though it was predatory.
It sort of kept the engine sputtering along, maybe, just long enough for someone else to grab the wheel and steer it out of the ditch. It's a strange paradox.
That is a paradox, and it leads to another thought, maybe for you listening. How much can you really hate someone you've never met? Parker is, without doubt, one of the most controversial figures ever in music. But Elvis kept him for 20 years. Trusted him, apparently. Through thick and thin. Maybe the picture isn't just black and white. Maybe it's more complicated than just good guy, bad guy. Because here's the really striking thing. Graceland is standing today, thriving, partly because Colonel Parker stayed, even when maybe he shouldn't have. It's weird to think about, right? So next time, in part 3 of this deep dive, we're going to jump forward a bit. We'll look at the 2005 sale of Elvis Presley Enterprises, Lisa Marie's role and all that, and why that deal is still debated so much today. Now, everything we've talked about, it comes from a lot of reading, documented sources. If you want to go deeper yourself, we really recommend a few books. Elvis Inc., The Fall and Rise of the Presley Empire by Sean O'Neill is fantastic. Also, The Colonel, The Extraordinary Story of Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis Presley by Alana Nash, really digs into Parker.
And there's Elvis and the Colonel An insider's look at the most legendary partnership in showbiz by Greg McDonald and Marshall Terrell.
Yeah, those are great resources. The authors really did their homework.
Absolutely. So check them out, read them, and, form your own conclusions. There's a lot there to think about.